Howdy y'all, welcome back to Lock Talk San Antonio. My name is Thomas Bingham, joined alongside by Wac. Obviously no Evan Barr this week. He had a pre-planned vacation, very ironic of all weeks with the coronavirus and everything. We will obviously give you our highs of the week on this week's show. We will continue talking about area sports. Obviously, they were greatly reduced this past week, and for the foreseeable future with the coronavirus, we will let you know how it's affecting the area sports scene, and then obviously how it's affecting sports and other things across the state, across the world, across the country. We will also update you on Evan and I's pick'em records, and we will go from there. But before we get to all that, I'm going to bring in Wac in. How are you doing today, Wac?
I'm doing good, all things considered. As you can see, definitely a new format in the sense that we're not in the office. I would say it's less about the coronavirus situation. That might have a little to do with it. More of me and you live so far apart. We just decided, hey, let's just shoot from home, so that way we don't have to come in all the way to the office just to shoot the show for 20, 30 minutes. So so new little setup for this week and potentially going forward, with some different maybe a new kind of podcast setup. So we'll get to all of that. But we had obviously a big topic to get into. So I think before we do that, we should get into our highs of the week just to get that over with. I know I teased mine last week, and I do have that update for you. But let's get to yours first, Thomas.
My high of the week is the fact that San Antonio Cole was able to not only play but win one of their games at UIL State boys basketball this past Thursday. Congrats to the Cole Cougars for not only doing that, but advancing past the round that they got eliminated in last year. Obviously, last year they got knocked out by Dallas Madison in the state semifinals in 3A. And this year, they'll have a chance at a rematch if things get resumed in the coming weeks or months, because Dallas Madison also won their state semifinal game last Thursday. So for me, the fact that they actually were able to hit the court at the Alamodome, pass up last year's finish, and then obviously advance to their latest state title game appearance, that's my high of the week.
That's a good one. I think mine might have you beat though, Thomas. I am engaged. Proposed to my girlfriend this weekend.
Congratulations!
Thank you. So I proposed to her this weekend. Didn't let the whole virus situation deter my plans. So, she was completely surprised, which is good. She's usually good at sniffing those kind of things out. So, but luckily I was able to surprise her on that. So, it helps that she wanted something kind of, quiet and kind of just to ourselves. So, didn't have to take her to a fancy dinner where she might like kind of catch on. Got her friends to take her out to get her nails done, because she was just like, one of the things you have to do is make sure my nails are done. But luckily her friend's birthday was Sunday, so she thought it was just for her and not for her getting engaged. So worked out. So it was an exciting weekend for me, to say the least.
That's awesome. Obviously, I wasn't sure if the thing that you were working on as your high of the week last week was still on with the coronavirus, but I'm glad you were able to pull that off.
Definitely still on. And so, now the fun begins of wedding planning. So that will be an interesting time for sure.
Well, we got a lot to cover on today's program. Obviously, a great start to our show with our highs of the week. But let's continue in talking about area sports and how it's being affected by the coronavirus. I mean, what a crazy couple days. I mean, last time that you and I recorded, and obviously Evan as well, we didn't know all this was going to come down.
Yeah, I think the only thing last time was that South by Southwest had been canceled. I think that was really the only thing that really happened at that moment. So you knew it was somewhat serious, but I think it really took a turn. I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday night with the Utah Jazz game. Before we do that, let's just get this area recaps out of the way. Tell and these pick'ems out of the way, because I know we're going to be talking forever about this. So why don't we talk about the games that did happen? Let's talk about those real quick, just so we can move on from that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, only one area team was able to get in a basketball game at UIL State this past weekend. That was San Antonio Cole. They won 58-44 against Peaster. And this was critical. I mean, to me, this really kind of allowed everybody to settle down a little bit, especially in this area, being able to experience some joy in this very troubled time. Like I said before, the ability for Cole to surpass last year's finish is also a big deal. This is a past state championship program from 1989. Obviously, Shaq was on that team, and I know they got a guy on their team this year that's actually called Lil Shaq. He's a very tall guy, very skinny guy, kind of like Shaq was back in the day before he got to the NBA. But the fact that we had some great success before things kind of started to slow down was a big deal. Obviously, the San Antonio Brandeis game against Duncanville was postponed. The same went for San Antonio Wagner against Mansfield Timberview. And then obviously San Saba's game against Martins Mill. There were obviously other sports going on last week. That wasn't the only sport that was going on. As you all know, it's a very busy time. Do you want to mention our pick'em results at this point, Josh, before we kind of get into the coronavirus, since this is kind of related?
Yeah, definitely. So we had 3 of the 5 games take place. Fredericksburg beat Comfort in softball. San Antonio Johnson beat Cal Allen in baseball. And then Vandergrift beat Round Rock Stony Point in soccer. Then the last 2 games didn't take place. So, Thomas, you ended up going 2-1, and Evan went 0-3. His tie backfired. I guess I jinxed him there, making him try and go for that tie. But, that does end up putting you in the lead, though, with our little break going on. So now Evan, he's sitting at 29-15, and Thomas just sitting at 30-14. So, we might have to do something to make up those 2 games. We'll see. We don't know what's going to happen with the pick'ems. Obviously, this coronavirus situation has kind of thrown a wrench in everyone's kind of plans, if you will. But as of right now, you're sitting there with that 1-point lead. But let us get into the coronavirus situation. I know for here, I don't know how you want to talk about it, Bob. We'll say high school sports went up until Saturday for some. I know our last games, because we had a couple of games on live, went to Saturday. But, this really started, I think that the dominoes kind of fell because of Rudy Gobert. Once he got tested for coronavirus, it was like, okay, this is serious. We can't, because I think what probably would have happened before he tested positive, I think it was going to lead to empty stadium games. But once an athlete got the virus, you just can't play the games anymore. You just can't. What do you think on that, Thomas?
No, I think you're right. That happened Wednesday night. And the funny thing is, right before all that news was coming out, I actually was over at Evan's place, and his wife was supposed to go to the Spurs game this past Friday. And she was like, man, I don't want this to get canceled. And within minutes, the news came out that obviously Gobert tested positive. And that's when, obviously it seemed like every event, sports, league, and everything else in the books, concerts, etc., started to either cancel or postpone. And within, I would say probably minimally 48 hours, if not 60 hours, everything just started to kind of slow down in the world. And obviously, the high school sports leagues in this state, UIL, TAPS, SBC, TCAF, they basically had to shut down their operations temporarily until this thing blew over. I have not heard about TCAL. I would expect that they have not ceased operations, but at least held off games for a couple weeks, like all the other high school sports leagues in the state. But the fact that 4 of the 5 major high school sports leagues are at least, obviously, possibly all 5 of them are without action for a couple weeks says a lot. It definitely will affect everyone, especially you and I at VYPE, in terms of how we're, doing our daily assignments and making sure that we're still meeting deadlines and everything. But I know for me, minimally, I know there's going to be content from me every single day on VYPE.com. And obviously this show, we hope to continue to push out on a regular basis during this very interesting time. But you're right. I think what happened with Gobert, you started seeing within hours, within minutes, things drastically changing in the world. And that's where we are today.
And it was literally a domino effect. Once NBA went, everything had to follow. And I think it was the right call. I know some people are upset. Some athletes are upset. Especially March Madness. It's crazy to think we won't be able to say X was a champion, or this team was a champion. Hey, I guess we can say, hey, is this going to affect Shaka's job or not? Because technically he didn't make the tournament, because we don't know if he did or not. I heard rumors that NCAA was still going to release the tournament bracket just to show who would have been in. So that would be interesting if they did that. But I mean, it's crazy, because when kind of worldwide events like kind of somewhere on this level happen, right? We always have sports to fall back on, and now we don't. This is one of the first times, at least in my life anyways, besides maybe, 9/11 where, they did shut down some games. But even when they shut down some games, there were still some happening, or, practices were still going on or whatever. Nothing's happening now, right? Practices, no. Games, no. It's like now we really get to see, it's like all this stuff we used to be able to fall back on, we can't. We always have that safety net at sports, and now we don't for the foreseeable future, and it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. I'm gonna talk. Let's stay in the pros real quick, and then let's move down to high school. Do you think the NBA will have a playoffs? Like, do you think maybe what they'll say is, hey, we're gonna play X amount of games, or hey, we're gonna shorten the amount of teams that can get in this year, and we're gonna start the playoffs now? What do you think is gonna happen? Because what is not fun about this is some of these teams that had kind of a good momentum going, they're going to lose that moment. I mean, sports is about momentum sometimes. And some of these basketball teams are maybe like Lakers, for example, they had all this momentum. Some of these teams are going to lose it. What do you think the NBA might decide to do with this?
That's a great question. I think what's going to happen, and I saw a report yesterday, Sunday, the day before that we're recording this, that there was a chance that the NBA would get pushed back until June, but they're starting to work things out. Assuming this virus comes and goes, or at least there's some type of cure for it, very quickly. Obviously, if that... Sorry about that.
No worries.
The fact that, obviously there are options for this league to continue play. I think that if this thing is a month or two in length, I think for sure you could find a way to resume play the season in the NBA. But if this thing goes longer than that, I would say you probably would have to cancel the end of the season, because the fact is, you're going to have to, if you were to push it back even that far, where you start either in May or June. It's going to push everything back. It's going to push back training camp for next season. So it would just really, truly kind of shake up the NBA schedule.
This might be an interesting conversation that we might start to see happening if this gets to that point. Is, does the NBA push back the start of their next season till after Christmas, which is something, or to start like on Christmas, which is something that people have been talking about as far as an option for a while. So maybe they kind of use this as a test run to, and I think part of that was, do they shorten the season if they start later, and so maybe it could be NBA saying, well, hey, we have the situation, let's test it out to see what happens. Do you think that could be a route they go?
I never thought about that, but that is a great option in my opinion. Just the fact that, because, that first month or so, it's truly battling like kind of the heat of the NFL season, college football, everything else is going on in the fall. That would be a really interesting way to obviously balance, a delayed start, and then obviously a delayed finish possibly this season.
That'd be an interesting de facto test run, if you will. On the flip side of potentially moving the season, shortening the season, it's not really coronavirus related, but NFL's playing 17 games now. What do you think about that?
That's really cool. The fact that, we could see more NFL, more football, and we have more playoff teams too. So
yeah, one more for each division.
I heard right that the extra playoff teams will be starting up this season, and then and then
only one seed's get a bye now.
Well, and then the 17 game schedule I think would be for next year. But yeah, you're right.
Gotcha.
You have 6 teams playing opening week, and then that 7th team would be playing the second round of play.
Yeah. So I think the only other two that might really be impacted as far as potentially not playing their championship games, well, one's not so much a championship, but NHL obviously has their championships in May, June, kind of time, July, and then the Olympics. I mean, do you see either one? Do you see the NHL finishing the season, and two, do you think the Olympics still happen? If they are happen then, or do they get pushed back?
I mean, I think if the NBA resumes, the NHL will resume. I mean, they're very similar in a lot of ways. They play in, a lot of the same arenas. There's going to be a lot of factors that are going to have to play out in both those leagues' favors to be able to, continue to, play out this season. So to me, if the NBA or the NHL finds a way to resume, I think that's going to promote the other one to do the same thing. The Olympics, I think it's up in the air. I mean, really depends, especially with a lot of things, how long this virus lasts. I mean, I know the virus originated in Asia. I believe the Olympics are in Asia this
Japan. They're in Japan.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks, and I would say probably the next month or two. To me, the next month or two are super critical if you want to continue not only these sports leagues finishing out sports seasons, but also kind of getting us all back to a normal daily routine.
Final question before we move to high school on this. Let's say it does pick up. Do you foresee maybe some athletes deciding to, in Olympics or just pro level sports, deciding to say, you know what, I'm going to sit out for an X amount of extended time because I still don't feel safe unless there's a cure, obviously. And then do you think that could potentially happen?
You're asking if I think that athletes are going to sit out?
Yeah, let's say the Olympics goes on, right? I mean, you're gonna have a lot of people from a lot of different countries coming through. Do you think some athletes might say, you know what, might be my once in an opportunity chance, but I'm not gonna risk getting this virus? Or do you think people will still come? What do you think might happen in that regard?
I think some might, especially if there's a hotbed over there in the world still. To me, you've seen countries, you've seen athletes not participate in the Olympics before, so this would just be kind of that latest example, potentially, of either a significant group or even some high-profile athletes that you're used to seeing at the Olympics, possibly sitting out.
Before I said we're going to go to high school, but let's go to college real quick. Obviously, I think it's going to be heartbreaking for us as UT fans, knowing that softball and baseball were just on track, right? They had a really good shot to win it all. What do you think on that? Kind of heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is. I mean, the good thing is the seniors have been given another opportunity to play next year.
NCAA does something right.
Yeah, I mean, great move by them for sure. Especially, these athletes only get so many years of eligibility, and you're right. Like, both Texas baseball and softball were having great starts to the season, and you would expect very similar results next year. But kind of going back to what you were saying before, the fact that there will be a major break from the way their season's concluded this year to when they actually start getting ready for next season is a significant period of time. And yes, I think it'll be interesting to see, especially these teams that got off to a great start, like the two that you mentioned. Will they do the same thing? Will they get off to a strong start next year as they did this year? Or will it be something where, that major break in time could kind of disrupt their momentum?
True. All right, moving on to high school now. I think the biggest question is, will there be high school sports the rest of this kind of season?
That's a great question. I want to say... I hate to say this. I'm going to say no. I think with the way the NCAA came out late last week and said that they basically can't. Oh, they didn't just basically. They canceled all their national championship events. Most conferences have canceled the rest of conference play for the 2020 season. I would be shocked if there was a way to get everything in. Maybe, if this thing is a very quick thing, maybe in the next month, if things have gotten back on track, you're able to get everything done by the end of the school year. The problem is, if it goes beyond that, like let's say the end of April, we're still in a very similar spot.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you're going to have less time to not only get, your normal classroom assignments done, but obviously get, everything from, working out, training, all that stuff, and then playing all your district games and playing all your playoff and, championship games. I'd be shocked if everybody got what they had planned for the rest of the school year, especially in the athletic world.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna kids, students. I mean, it's devastating, but I think it's overall gonna be the right call. I think there's gonna be too many logistical nightmares, especially. I mean, yeah, and then. Yeah, man. It seems like the only inevitable thing that's going to happen is. But I mean, for instance, here with VYPE, we have a soccer club for 12-year-olds to 19-year-olds age range, and they canceled their soccer games up until the end of April. So I mean, that kind of gives you an idea of what this can do, and I think they're using adding a spring break as just a preliminary thing, but I think you're going to see next week and into next week you're going to see, I think you're going to see school. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if schools close down for the rest of the semester as well. I mean, I could see that happening depending on where this goes in the next 2 weeks. I mean, you hear reports saying this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. If it follows because first it went to, first it started in China and then now Italy got it and then we're getting it now. And I mean, Italy, they're still seeing it bad right now. I think, go ahead. What you were saying? Yeah, and theirs is getting worse before it got better, and we're basically in kind of that going up that hill as far as the trajectory. So I think we still have a few weeks before this thing kind of starts turning around. And so with that, I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see what the UILs, the TCALs, the TAPs, and everyone decides to do, but. At the end of the day, you got to take the safety of not only the students but anyone that can get this virus, which is everyone, in the consideration. I mean, if they do decide to play, are they going to play in empty stadiums? There's so much that goes into factors here, and I think at the end of the day, the best thing for them to do is be like, hey, you know what, this stinks, but we gotta have to just say no sports for the rest of the semester, and we'll reevaluate. I mean, NFL seems like they're just gonna keep on doing what they're doing. It sounds like, but I feel like that might change a little bit too. But that's a conversation for the summer, and we'll see where we're at with the coronavirus then. But yeah, it's a sad thing because for a lot of the I mean, I don't know if you played high school sports, but I mean, as seniors, it's your last chance, right? And some of these seniors who maybe have had great careers up to now were expecting a big senior season. I mean, they can't now, and unlike the NCAA, they're graduating. They don't get to live that senior year, and man, that's one of those things that you just hate to see it.
Well, and for like myself, I mean, my best part of my high school athletic career was that last semester that I was playing high school sports, and I mean, for me to kind of finish the way I did, really kind of, I was able to look back on all the hard work I put in and feel very satisfied. And I know that there are other athletes in that boat, who, they're just getting their groove, and, they may have gotten off to a great start in 2020, especially if you were baseball and softball. Or maybe, you heat up late in the boys basketball playoffs, and now you're sitting here not knowing, if there's even going to be an end to your season, because I mean, everything came to a complete halt, which was, crazy, not only in the sports world, as we've talked about, but just in so many areas of life. I mean, before, I know we're probably going to wrap up pretty soon, but I do want to mention there are some dates that have been announced as of the last 2 or 3 days in regards to the major leagues of obviously the high school sports in the state in terms of their anticipated return. We'll see if that happens or if that gets pushed back. But for the time being, UIL competition has been suspended through March 29th. You have TAPS, which is April 12th through April 12th. SBC, it's through April 13th. TCAF, that's through April 6th. And like I said before, TCAL has not made an announcement. I'd be shocked if they were still playing games or practicing or stuff like that. But the fact that these leagues did what they did in terms of announcing, multiple week delays really says a lot about where we're going over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and of course, we'll keep you posted when we find out more. Like Thomas kind of mentioned in the beginning, we will be changing up the format of our show. Obviously, with no games, we can't do any pick'ems. We can't do any area recaps, but we don't know exactly what the new format's going to look like until kind of things get back to a normal state. We may not do a show next week or the next couple of weeks while we figure that out. We don't know yet, so stay tuned for that. But I think what we're trying to do some interviews with some players and coaches, kind of what kind of me and Thomas are doing. We're doing this where we're on Google Hangouts and doing this podcast where he's at his house, I'm at mine, so we might do something like that. So we're still figuring out on the specifics on that end, but do stay tuned. We're going to try to get you content because this is something to follow and keep on following. So do stay with us. But I think we should end it there. So Thomas, let's get us out of here.
Yeah, hey, if you enjoyed today's program, definitely follow us on social media, VYPE ATX, VYPE SATX on Twitter, VYPE Texas on Facebook, Instagram. You can also follow me on all three of those platforms at Texan.
I think I should always plug Evan. You can follow him. What is it? At Evan Buyer _UT, I believe it is. Is that correct, Thomas?
I thought it was Evan _.
I'll put it. You'll see it. You'll see it here. I'll make sure to include. It's Evan _Buyer UT. There it is. Got it for you. So you can follow him there. And then you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at JoshWack13. And as always, you can follow the VYPU program on Twitter at VYPU_A. On Instagram at VYPU, and then you can always visit the website VYPU.com. If you're a student interested in applying, go ahead and apply. I know we're going to be talking about me and the VYPU kids about what they can do because this affects them as well. So they can't write stories. So try to push some ideas to their way. And if you are still interested, sign up. Well, you can work over the summer. And then if you're a senior, it's kind of too late now. But if you're a junior, sophomore, freshman interested, come on through.
Yeah, and obviously, go check out VYPE.com for daily coverage. We are continuing to push out content during this very weird time in our lives. Also, just wanted to remind y'all, continue to help each other out. And obviously, if you feel like, you're not feeling right or something's up with your health, go check out or go talk to a doctor, go get tested. And obviously quarantine yourself at this point to, limit the spread of this thing. We will talk to you next week. Bingham and Wac signing off. See you then.